So we're taking a little bit of a different turn here on the channel. We're going to be talking about a vulnerability that was recently leaked because there's not an actual CVE yet for it. I'll actually link this in the description, but it's basically a vulnerability in Cups, which is a printing system that's installed by default by most Linux distributions. Like, we'll go down here and just show you it. So most new Linux distributions, let's see, they list it here. So these are probably, I'm not sure, downloaded for Linux. Okay. I know Debian installs it by default. I literally just uninstalled it from my server just because I totally forgot. I don't even own a printer, so I don't need it. But Arch, I think Arch installs it by default. Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, all these shits probably, when you do the little quick install, they install that shit. So let me actually go to the picture. So where the issue lies is that Cups Browse D, which is a service that, and these are enabled by default on with these distributions. They install it by default and they enable it by default. And so one called Cups Browse D. Let me see if I can find it in here. Okay, well it just shows the shortened version, or right here. Cups Browse D is enabled by default and ran by root, and it's listening on UDP port 631. So, I mean, intuitively you can see that in order to mitigate this, you can have a firewall in place, obviously. You should already have that in place. But as an extra step, you can, like with UFW, I use UFW, Universal Firewall. I believe that's what it's called, but just UFW for short. I have that set up, and I currently just denied the port, even though I don't have Cups installed. Who knows what other vulnerabilities there are? So fuck it, we take it one step at a time. Let me see. So this is actually showing the actual RCE, the remote code execution, and how to get it working. So you can see here. So entry points on the public internet or just WAN would be a remote attacker sends a UDP packet to port 631, and you need no authentication whatsoever. And I'll actually show you screenshots in the article that show that it doesn't even notify the user. It just adds the printer. So that Cups Browse D that I was mentioning, it's basically a constant search for printers on the network. And so that constant search, it auto adds the printer, and that's where the problem lies. On LAN, a local attacker can spoof zeroconf or DNSD advertisements, and I'm not too sure about that, about the LAN part as far as that attack vector, but I understand the WAN part. You can also read this, like I said, I'll leave in the description. Let's see. So yeah, affected systems are most new Linux distributions, some BSD, Google Chrome maybe, Solaris, and I believe he actually has a list. This file contains a list of unique Linux systems affected. So if we go here, so yeah, this is a little paste bin of all the kernels affected. You can hear my mouse. So yeah, I think he just listed Linux. I'm not entirely sure if Apple Cups is affected. I know Apple has their own derivative of it. I'm not sure if that's affected, but either way, if you don't own a printer, you don't need a printer, just uninstall. And you don't need Cups, or you don't think you'll ever need Cups, which is more than likely the case, then just uninstall Cups. What's funny about this situation is that earlier I was running GNOME, or not GNOME, I think it was KDE. I was running KDE Plasma, and all that bloatware that KDE has, I was like, fuck it, let me just do a fresh install. Upon a fresh install, I was watching a tutorial because I still don't know the Arch install method off the top of my head. I still have to go back to the commands. The actual Arch install manually, not Arch install. And in the video, they told me to install Cups. And I thought to myself, I was like, what the fuck do I need Cups for? I don't own a printer. And so, looking back on that now with this Cups vulnerability, I just think it's funny. And I was like, what the fuck do I need Cups for? So, yeah, as you can see here, like I showed you, cups browse D is listening on UDP port 631. And so what is cups browse D? Indeed part of the cup system, and is, like I said, is responsible for discovering new printers and automatically adding them to the system. And what he noted that I had no idea Linux just added anything found on the network before the user can even accept or be notified, which is crazy. So yeah, this is, at this point, I'm extremely intrigued and curious. If you want to look through all this code, I'm not going to go over it because I personally haven't gone in depth with the code. I've just been recognized I've just been notified of the vulnerability. So let's see if I can show you. So yeah, it's, of course, it stack buff overflows and race conditions. Let's see, go down here. There's a little screen cap where it shows whenever it exploits that, the evil socket, which he actually has a Twitter or an X, whatever you call it. He was talking about this vulnerability and how the cups developers don't care and they're not taking this seriously. And apparently it rated a 9.9. I don't know. I think that's accurate just because Linux distributions automatically enable it and install it by default. So I feel like that's something that's obscure and not really noticed by the user. So I think that 9.9 it's worthy of that 9.9. So as you can see, he added a printer called God. He said the location is in your butt. So it just shows, he even said here, my fake printer was immediately added to local printers with no notification whatsoever to the user. So that's pretty much all I'm going to go through in this video, but to recap, to protect yourself from this, you should obviously have a firewall in place. But ultimately, you can just disable and remove cups browse D, the service, or the package. You can just remove it. I just completely uninstalled cups because I don't need it for my server. My server, I didn't do a manual package install just because I just wanted to be up quick because I had things to do. But I just uninstalled the entirety of the cups package, including cups browse D. In case your system can't be updated and for some reason you rely on this service, block all traffic to UDP port 631 and possibly all DNS SD traffic. And then here's his personal recommendation. I've seen and attacked enough of this code base to remove any cup service, binary, and library from any of my systems and never again use a Unix system to print. I'm also removing every zeroconf, Avahi, and Bonjour listener. You might consider doing the same. So, given this, we don't even know what other things that the cups dev have not brought to attention because they feel like it's not important. So his recommendation of removing the cup service, which I did even before I even read this part, I was like, fuck it. I didn't install cups on my main system. I'm definitely not going to have it on my server. I don't own a printer. So yeah, I'd say just remove cups. If you don't need it, just remove it. But yeah, I'll leave this in the description below so you guys can fully read it through. Hope you guys enjoyed.